Hey everybody, and welcome to week 2. I'm looking forward to looking through everything that you handed in for week 1. I hope that you found it all kind of intuitive, like you're like, oh yeah, I already knew this, but now you have a deeper level of understanding of it and kind of like know what to call it and how you might apply it to your own work in the communication field. So last week was very macro, big picture narrative. Now we're going to start with looking at how you can create the narrative. So last week I asked you to come up with an idea of one for university relations. This week we're going to start to look at how you might actually put that narrative into place through communication. So specifically, we're looking at one type of external communication, which would be the media release. The media release used to be like the bread and butter of public relations and corporate communication. It's the way that corporate communication specialists were able to get their word out far and wide. Because there was no social media, there were really only three ways to directly reach stakeholders. One was face-to-face. If a stakeholder was interfacing with your business, whether it's like a store, so people were coming in, or something like that. There was advertising, and there still is, right? Like commercials, billboards, stuff like that. And then there was media releases. So media releases are materials that you prepare to go through the mainstream media. So a lot of the stories you see in both local and national newspapers actually are born out of media releases. So an organization has something to tell. It has to be something that's newsworthy. And so we're going to cover what news is and what makes something newsworthy this week. And then once you have that idea for news and newsworthiness, you write something called a news release or a media release. And a media release gives you as the organization the opportunity to kind of frame information about your organization that you then send to a reporter, and then reporters decide if it's something that they are interested in printing or having run in the newspaper. And so a lot of factors impact that. And we talk about that in your lesson in the reading, so I'm not going to go into too much detail, but anything from what the reporter has already covered, for example, in your industry in a given time frame. It can depend on the relationship that you have with specific reporters at different newspapers. And it depends on how newsworthy your information is and how well written your news release is. So news releases have a very, very specific type of format that you need to follow, including not using the first person, making it sound very kind of formal and subjective. I mean, it doesn't have to be formal difficult. It just has to be, it's not like you're talking casually to the reporter. Essentially, what you're doing is creating something that ideally they could almost pick up and use as a story with just a little bit of tweaking in their newspaper. So if you think about editorial writing and what you read in newspapers or online news sources, that's pretty much how a media release sounds. And there's so much more. It's in your lesson and in your reading. Your reading does a great job of laying out different kinds of media releases, as well as the specific types of formatting for each. And then we're also going to look a little bit at preparing to write. So even if you format your media release, great. Even if you have a really strong newsworthy message, if it gets obscured in grammatical errors and bad flow and other types of writing mistakes, it's going to hurt your credibility, and people aren't going to take the time to wade through it to hear your great message. They're going to just be like, nope, and dismiss it. So those are the 3 different facets we're really focusing on this week, and they all go together toward getting media coverage for your organization, which in the case of this semester is Penn State Abington. So this week you have the lesson, you have hallmarks of good writing. So these are just different kind of like writing tips or strategies that I've come up with in previous classes, like with students, about what makes a good writer. So I think that's a just nice, concise list for you to have. And then for your activities, your strengths and weaknesses as a writer. So I want you to assess yourself and be honest, because I'm not grading you on your writing in this so much as your ideas in this. So what do you think are some of your strengths? What do you think are some of your weaknesses? And then what are some strategies you can put in place to address your weaknesses? And then also, this is a discussion here, newsworthy content. And that is, the newsworthy content, it's a discussion just kind of getting you to talk about the different principles of newsworthiness that are covered in your readings and which ones you think are the most important ones. And then you'll see on my screen there's optional assignment, and I didn't put it up there, but it's actually a grammar quiz. So a lot of times when I give this during the regular semester, people are really surprised at how many they get wrong, and those little mistakes they're making, like the difference between TO and TOO and TWO, and the different forms of their and your and so on. So I will go ahead and add that as soon as I'm done with this video. And that is it. The other thing I want to draw your attention to is now that we've kind of like gotten into the week, or into the semester, sorry, you have some things coming up due soon. So this Sunday by midnight, your campaign outline is due. And so that's the idea that you came up in last week's discussion. I'll get feedback to you on that today. You're going to kind of roll that into a campaign outline. And this campaign outline is going to guide the rest of your media materials for the semester. So what you'll be doing for that is either tweaking the Penn State narrative and Penn State Abington narrative and coming up with a way to retell it, or coming up with a new narrative for Penn State Abington altogether. And the campaign outline has a very specific format to follow. I outline it here in the assignment sheet, as well as it's pretty much following the format that is in your textbook, except I do ask you to talk about the 5 E's from last week's lesson. So everything that I ask you to do in this assignment specs part is from your reading, and they talk about it very specifically in terms of the campaign outline format. But then I've also added the 5 E's, and as I say here, this isn't part of the report format listed in the text. Insert them in the order of the report. Those, do not Google for them. They are from the lesson. So if you didn't already view the lesson, now would be the time to do that. And then I encourage you to read through this and see if you have any questions, and you can reach out to me and let me know. And that is it for now. I will get back to you when I have a chance to look at the Zoom poll with what times might work for a Zoom meeting in week 3. And if you have any questions, just feel to reach out. Have a great week.